Hello, I'm Zachary Piper, and my partners in this study are Marissa Nunez and Haley Wadley. So we decided to perform a study on how, and while researching the topic, we found that stress is prevalent to an average to high level in 80% of college students. And regarding exercise, a broad study was administered around various universities across the country, and it found that stress levels were reduced by exercise. And so we decided to build upon this research by administering a couple of surveys to collect data. And so we administered the Cohen's Perceived Stress Scale, which was an online survey which allowed people to determine how stressed they were, their perceived stress in their lives throughout a week's period of time, and also the International Physical Activity Questionnaire, which allowed us to gather data on how active people were. And so we hypothesized that exercise will have a significant effect on perceived stress levels in college students. And we also predicted that students who exercise will experience less stress than those who do not.
We had 79 participants, all currently enrolled students at Idaho State University. The mean age was 25 with a standard deviation of 8.709 years. 81% of the participants were women, with about 17% being men, and the remaining 2.5% identifying as a different gender. 23% of participants were freshmen, 22% were sophomores, 15.4% were juniors, and 36% were seniors. These demographics mostly aligned with what we expected to see at Idaho State University in terms of distribution of gender and age. However, we were expecting more underclassmen to be participants rather than more seniors. In terms of measuring our variables, we first defined our variable stress levels as the amount of stress a student is currently feeling within their life over the last month. Our other variable, exercise, we defined as physical activity that improves your overall physical fitness and health. For stress assessment, we used the Perceived Stress Scale, or the PSS, which is used to gather information and assess the degree to which people perceive stress in their lives. The PSS questionnaire contains 10 items that are rated on a Likert scale from 0, never, 1, almost never, 2, sometimes, 3, fairly often, and 4, very often. The PSS has high internal consistency with alphas ranging from 0.79 to 0.87 and high reliability, according to Chen 2021. In terms of assessing exercise, we use the International Physical Activity Questionnaire, or the IPAC, which is used to measure exercise levels. Students answered questions regarding their physical activity levels throughout the week in minutes. For demographics, questions were included at the end to gather information regarding their age, sex, class level, and ethnicity. In terms of our procedures, our data was collected through SONA, an online research system in which ISU students could take our surveys as part of their class credit. For data scoring, all of our data for both scales was entered into a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. The IPAC was scored with pre-coded cells, and the PSS was scored by adding scores with some reverse scoring. Using JASP software, we used a Pearson's R correlation to analyze the correlation between exercise and stress levels, as well as a Cronbach's alpha to measure the reliability and consistency of our scales.
On this page, you will see our results. So as both Marissa and Zachary have said, we used the Perceived Stress Scale and the IPAC scale. And then for our testing, we used a Pearson's R correlation as well as a Cronbach's alpha. The Pearson's R correlation showed that the IPAC scale had a very small, insignificant negative correlation with the Perceived Stress Scale with an R of negative 1.04. The Cronbach's alpha showed that both measures showed very good reliability and consistency, and you can see those more specific statistics on our slide. So on this slide, I wanted to show a couple of figures that I think represent our results pretty well. Figures are just always a way that is a lot easier to understand in my opinion. So on our left, that demonstrates our IPAC scores, and then on the right, that is our perceived stress scale scores. So on the left, if we go to the IPAC, it shows that people reported either less exercise or less vigorous exercise. And on the right, you'll see that we had a median of 8 on our perceived stress scale scores. You can also see, if you compare the two histograms, why they don't really have a correlation, because they do not look similar at all. They are two very different histograms. So, like I said, I just always like to use figures so we can have a visual representation of what our results were.
According to our results, our hypothesis was not confirmed. There seemed to be no statistically significant correlation between exercise and stress levels. The Cronbach's alpha results did confirm reliability in our two measures, the PSS scale and the IPAC scale. This shows that the scales were accurate measures of the data. These correlation results are generally inconsistent with previous research. It was shown in this specific, flawed study that exercise did not have a significant effect on perceived stress levels. It did show, however, that we were on the right track in terms of finding a correlation. While it was not significant, there was still a very small negative correlation between exercise and stress. With some considerable changes to the method of collecting data, there could be more significant correlations found. Students might have felt inclined to say that they exercise more than they do due to social pressures, even though it was anonymous, which goes to show that there is always a risk of bias within self-report measures, specifically social desirability bias. In the future, potential research possibilities could include a study with other measures besides self-report that can provide more accurate results, such as directly observing exercise habits and maybe even monitoring heart rate and stress levels throughout their daily routine, which could provide accurate readings on both the amount of exercise that students participate in, as well as their rates of stress. Beyond the statistical analysis, this study demonstrates that there is no single method of stress management. Some students that answered with little to no exercise also had low levels of stress. So ultimately, exercise does have its benefits, but you should find methods for managing stress in whatever way works best for you.